Hey, what's up my loves? My name is Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we are doing my most disappointing reads of 2021. 2021 has been a really interesting reading year, but I would say on the whole it has been a very meh reading year, to the point that it was really difficult putting together these end of year lists and finding books that even evokes like strong emotions in me, because I feel like a lot of the books that I ended up reading this year, they were just like, I don't know, like they just didn't really mean anything. They didn't leave any like lasting impacts on me, so putting together these lists was hard. So the first book that I'm going to tell you guys about is Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. So I was really looking forward to reading this book because in the summer I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, and I really enjoyed that book. I thought it was really cute. It's like a small town romance and it's like an opposites attract vibe, and it was just really cute. I enjoyed it so much, and I thought it was really like hot, and it just gave, you know, it gave. It was good, it was very enjoyable, and so I was like, maybe this will be my moment to really dive into the Tessa Bailey hype. And so I decided to continue on with Tessa Bailey's Hot and Hammered series. So I read the third book in that, Tools of Engagement, and no, just absolutely no. This book did not work for me on any level whatsoever. I don't want to say I despised it, but like I just really didn't like it, and it had so much promise, but I just hated it. So the first thing that I'm going to say, why is my family always so loud? They're always loud and like stomping around whenever I film down here. I hate it. So Tools of Engagement is about this girl, Bethany, and her family owns this kind of like house flipping company or something, and so she wants to be a part of the house flip. She wants to be in charge of her own house flip rather than being like the person who stages the house for selling. So she wants to be in charge of like the contracting aspect, and her family doesn't really believe in her, and so she's like, well, I'm just gonna do it myself if you guys won't let me, blah blah blah. So there's just this whole like girl boss moment of her, you know, taking her place in the family company like she's always wanted to. It's the help of this guy named Wes, who is like this slightly younger guy that is a contractor who works under her brother, and he has a crush on her, but they have like this like playful animosity, pigtail pulling kind of relationship, but he decides that he's going to help her with this project that she's working on, and sparks fly from there. But this book, I just really did not vibe with it. Like, I think that Bethany and Wes, their relationship was cool, like they were fine, but I really did not feel compelled by Bethany's storyline at all, because the whole point of this is that she feels like she is, you know, she's ready to be in charge of this house flip thing. However, she really doesn't know anything about what goes into like completely reconstructing a house, and I don't feel like the story ever really, I feel like what I wanted this story to be, if it was going to be about Bethany, you know, like taking on this new career path or something, I wanted it to be about her like learning to do construction stuff, but she kind of didn't. It was just about her like, I don't know, doing things poorly, Wes fixing them, and then I'm supposed to be like, oh my god, Bethany, hooray, like I just didn't care. I really hate the dirty talk in this book as well. I think that the way that the characters talk is so fucking weird. So I feel like people always talk about how Tessa Bailey's books are so funny. This shit was not funny. I did not laugh. I think that the chemistry between Wes and Bethany was like okay, but I just feel like I couldn't really buy into Bethany's emotional journey because she didn't seem good at her job. And the whole point of the story is that she's trying to prove that she's good at this job and that she deserves to have this position in her family's company, but she wasn't fucking good at her job, so I don't care. And I don't know, it just was a very disappointing reading experience because I had such high hopes for it, and I also heard a lot of people talking really positively about that particular book, and it just was not, it did not give what I wanted it to give at all, and I hated it. Then we have Darling by Kate Ancrum. This is like a Peter Pan retelling. It's modern, and we have Wendy Darling. She's new to Chicago, and she meets this like mysterious and very attractive boy named Peter, who invites her to a party, and this is about like this wild night that she spends with Peter and his friends, and this is kind of like a thriller. This book was so disappointing to me. I don't want to say that this is a bad book by any means, but it was so disappointing to me because I absolutely love Kate Ancrum. She's one of my favorite writers of all time, and her two other books, The Wicker King and The Way of the Stars, you know, both 5-star reads, both of some of my all-time faves, and they made me cry. Like, I was just so invested in them and like emotionally invested in those books, and I just felt like her prose was so beautiful, and you know, she just was like someone that I really connected with. And I felt like all of those things that I felt like were major proponents of her writing and like her writing style and stuff, I found them to be really missing from this book. What to say about Darling? What disappointed me? I will say that the writing style of this one is just quite different from her other 2 books. So Darling, I would say, is written in a more like straightforward and simplistic kind of way, and I think her writing is always like that, but there's something that was more poetic about the writing style and like the sentence choices and structure of The Weight of the Stars and The Wicker King, and that was just like very notably absent from this book. And it's supposed to be like a thriller, but I just don't feel like the writing evoked this sense of like urgency, because this story kind of has like a countdown aspect to it, and you know that something bad is going to happen, but you don't know exactly what or exactly when. And I feel like the story failed, to me, the writing at least, failed to create a sort of sense of urgency and like worry in me as a reader. I didn't feel those things, so I just was kind of bored reading the book, and it just was like, it was just kind of disappointing. I talk about it more in a vlog, so I will leave that vlog linked up here so you can check it out, because I do have like some positive thoughts on it. I think that it talks really interestingly about like grooming, and about how really strict parents breed rebellious children, and that kind of rebellion can be incredibly dangerous for young kids. And I think that the story talks about that in a really interesting way, and you know, just some other stuff that I do think is like well executed. But I think that for me, this book just didn't fully give me what I wanted to give. It wasn't the, you know, typical Kate Ancrum writing style, and I just really missed it so much that I found it hard to enjoy the book, and I didn't connect with it as much as I wanted to, and that just made me really sad. Up next, we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a mythological retelling about Ariadne, and so Ariadne is the daughter of King Minos. She briefly shows up in like the Theseus and the Minotaur myth, and she also is the wife of Dionysus, if you did not know that. So Ariadne follows Ariadne's life as well as the life of her sister Phaedra, and it's just a retelling of like their myths. This book was, I will say that it's very beautifully written. I think that Jennifer Saint's writing style is very beautiful, very lyrical and great. I think it's like, it would be good for fans of like Madeline Miller. But I feel like what I want from these mythological retellings that like are centering, you know, the women of myth and blah blah blah, I really want them to provide a lot of emotional depth to the character. And I don't want to just read a bunch of summary about the other myths that they are a part of. And I feel like that's what this was. Like, this was a summary of all of the different myths that Ariadne features in. I wanted to feel more connected to Ariadne as a protagonist, and I did not feel that. I feel like her sister Phaedra was actually a lot more interesting than she was, and I don't know, I just found it to be generally kind of lackluster. Like, it was beautiful writing style. I definitely think that if you are someone who likes mythology and you are into myth retellings, that you will enjoy this, and I enjoyed it on like a surface level, but I was hoping that this was going to be like the next Circe or the next Song of Achilles for me, and it just really wasn't, so it was a bit disappointing. Okay, so then we have The Enforcer by Katrina Jackson, and this one really fucking breaks my heart because I love Katrina Jackson, and I still want to like work my way through the rest of her backlist and stuff, and like I was so excited about this book. I had it pre-ordered and everything. This is like the third book in her The Family series, which is like an Italian mafia romance series, and I really enjoyed the first book, which is called Beautiful and Dirty, and then the second book is The Hitman, and I absolutely loved The Hitman, and I really liked both of them. They were great, and so I just knew that The Enforcer was going to be so amazing and I was going to love it, and I just absolutely did not. Like, I can't even remember what the main girl's name is now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I don't remember what her name was at all. I know that the main guy, his name was Alfonso, and I think that what failed for me, it really did not sell me on the love story between these two characters. It's kind of like this, like, it has a bodyguard romance kind of feel because he needs to protect her from these like mafia people and blah blah blah. They go on, they're like faking a relationship, but I just felt like this book was not that great at selling me on the fact that they have any kind of emotional chemistry. Like, in this book, the sexual attraction was there, but there was no romantic attraction, and so I found myself to be completely bored, especially because they're not like banging the whole book. Like they kind of think that the other person is attractive, but they're not having sex the whole book. So they're doing other things and they're talking to each other and they're engaging with each other, but it's just boring. It doesn't feel like anything. And in addition to that, I just feel like the dialogue in this book was really, really bad. I don't know if this is a problem in Katrina's other books, but I found that the dialogue in this was so repetitive, as well as the fact that for some reason there were like so many overly descriptive dialogue tags that were just annoying. Like the characters were constantly yelling. It was like, you know, she yelled, she exclaimed, she shrieked, she squealed. Like, girl, shut the fuck up. We get it. Like we get it. You're going through some things, some stuff is going on, but you don't need to be squealing all the time. And I am just a person, I get very easily irritated by like little writing mechanics stuff. So like for me, if you're gonna have like all of these dialogue tags, like just say she said this, she said this. I as a reader can infer if something insane just happened and she's like, oh my god, you know, I can infer that she screamed or that she yelled or that she exclaimed it, you know, that she was shocked by it. I know that. I don't necessarily need you to tell me, oh my god, she shrieked. Like I don't need that. And if I do need that, and if that's something you're going to include in the book, that shouldn't be every single fucking dialogue tag. But it felt like the whole book the main character was screaming, and she irritated me to no fucking end. Beyond just her like screaming and stuff and like the dialogue tags and the dialogue in general, me not liking it, I also just didn't like the main character. She was just very annoying and irritating to me. She's not a kind of female protagonist that I enjoy reading about, and I just didn't have fun reading her perspective. So it just overall was a book that I did not like at all, and it makes me so sad because, as I said, I love Katrina Jackson. She is really like my homegirl, and I always love reading her books, but this one was just a complete flop for me. All right, so the next one is Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle. This book was just no, it just was no. Twice Shy is like this you know, contemporary romance. It's about this girl Maybelle. She I was gonna say she wins, but she doesn't win it, but she is willed. No, she inherits this estate from her great aunt that she had a really close relationship. Her aunt passes away, she inherits the estate, and she finds out that she has to share the estate with this guy who's like the groundskeeper. This is like a romance between them as they both move into the estate, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to like divide up the property and what they want to do with it, because they have two very different visions. Maybelle wants to make like a bed and breakfast or something, and the guy wants to make a petting zoo. I don't know, something fucking ridiculous. I just didn't like this book. I didn't like this book at all. I just found it to be so boring. Like I was unbelievably uninterested in this romance. Okay, so I can't say that I hated Maybelle, like there was anything in particular wrong with her, but I did not enjoy being in Maybelle's head because I don't know, there's just something about her POV that was just exhausting to be in. And in addition to that, she was just kind of weird, and like there were all these moments where she was like fantasizing about her life, and she has like this like coffee shop AU in her head that she goes to, and she like acts out these different fantasies, and like we got to see excerpts of that, and it was just weird. Like it just flowed strangely in the narrative, and I just found that like, yeah, being in Maybelle's head for the 200 something pages of this book was just so irritating, exhausting, and I didn't fucking like it. And I just didn't like the main relationship. Like it was just boring. Like it meant nothing to me. I did not care, and this is really, really not a story that's going to stick with me. And in fact, even the book is not sticking with me because I sold it. It just was like, it just was so boring to me. I'm sorry. So then we have The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, and this is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I just knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going to fucking love this book because I will say in like maybe January, February, I watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the very first time, and well, that's a lie. It wasn't the very first time. For the first time like as an adult, because I watched them when I was a kid, but I was a kid, so it hardly counts. But there was like my first time watching them as an adult, and I absolutely fucking fell in love with it. So obsessed with those movies. They're like my new comfort movies. Just amazing, fantastic. I love the world, I love the characters. I was like, yeah, so I have to read the book. I need more of this story, I need more of these characters. And I read The Fellowship of the Ring, and I was bored to fucking tears. J.R.R. Tolkien, why was there so much damn singing in this book? Why were there so many descriptions of the fucking forest? Like, why this? Why? It just, oh my god. Okay, so as you can see, my biggest issue with this is that I feel like this story is really bogged down by all of these like world building details. Tolkien really seems to be invested in kind of like painting a picture of the world, and I think that he did that very well, because I think that the movies, the Peter Jackson movies, I think that they like very well execute his vision, and everything that I could see while reading the book, I felt like was like perfectly translated to the screen. So I think that, you know, his specificity in terms of like what the leaves and shit and what the trees look like, it worked, it paid off. But I just think that it was so boring to read about. It was so boring. It was so slow paced. And I think I'm just coming to find that I don't enjoy reading about journeys. I like watching journeys in fantasy media, but reading about a journey is like the most boring shit in the world to me. So I learned something new about my reading taste, and it is that I hate a journey. And I don't want the setting to be overly described. If it is, I'm gonna be bored to fucking tears. And that's what I was with this book. This was not a bad book by any means. In fact, I will say that the book is really beautifully written. I think the prose is gorgeous, but yeah, I was so bored. I just couldn't help but feeling disappointed that I didn't love this, because I wanted to like read the books and be obsessed with them. And I don't know, it just didn't work for me. So we hate that for me. Alright, so then we have Not My Type by Evie Mitchell. This book was really disappointing, I think mostly because I found the cover to be so beautiful. Like, the cover is so beautiful, so compelling. I was like, I'm absolutely gonna love this book. I just have to. It was a very shallow understanding of like book reading, but I love this cover so much that I was like, it's just a sure thing that I'm going to be obsessed with the story as well. And I absolutely was not. Not My Type is about this woman who has a podcast, and I think it's like a sex-based podcast, kind of, but it's also about like disability and accessibility and all these other things. And so someone asked her a question about rope bondage and rope play, and like how to make rope play accessible for disabled people and wheelchair users, etc. So she gets the help of this rope master guy, and she contacts him. They decide to meet for coffee, and he teaches her stuff about like rope bondage or whatever. And I thought that I was gonna love this book, because you all know me, I love a spicy read, and I thought that like, okay, I'm gonna love this, it's gonna be spicy, it's gonna be so good, and it just wasn't. Let's talk about how in the sex scenes the love interest was talking about her tight snatch. Like, her snatch in a sex scene? You lost me. Immediately you fucking lost me. It just wasn't giving. It wasn't giving at all. In addition to just like the sexiness of the book not really working out for me, just because I feel like, mostly because of the sexy talk and the sexy thoughts or whatever, were just weird as shit. Like, it just didn't work. I didn't like it. But beyond that, I just felt like the story was structured very strangely, because the two characters, they meet for like coffee this one day, and then we see them meeting again at like this rope demonstration, and they kind of hang out a little bit. And then there's like this 2-month time jump where they're like really settled down into a relationship, and they're like boyfriend and girlfriend, and you know, they're meeting the family and like all this other kind of stuff. And I just felt like we really missed out on the emotional development. So it was like, what the hell? So there was no real emotional development, and I feel like the pacing of the story was weird because of the fucking time jump. But then I also found the sex to be weird, because who the fuck is calling it a snatch? Like, oh, your tight snatch feels so good. Like, what are you fucking talking about? What are you talking about? Like, ew. And then I also found like the dialogue to be kind of cringy. The writing just was like not fully to my taste. So some of the dialogue was cringy. And in addition to that, the main conflict that comes up is that our male love interest, he's really insecure, I guess, about like relationships, because his previous relationship was with this older woman, and he was really in love with her, and he like wanted to propose to her and stuff, and she told him like, oh, you're nothing but a fuckboy, like you're somebody that you have a fling with, but not someone that you settle down with. And first of all, that's not what the fuck a fuckboy is. Like, because he wanted to settle down with her. Like, he liked her, he was being good to her, he was treating her well and with respect, and he wanted to progress their relationship forward. Being a fuckboy is not, I want to get married. Being a fuckboy is not, I'm in love with you, please marry me. Like, that's not what a fuckboy is. And to make that like the central the central conflict basically is that the guy is having this emotional conflict about the fact that he's a fuckboy and nobody would ever want to be with him because blah blah blah. Like, it just didn't make any fucking sense. It was dumb and I didn't like it. So yeah, I give this book like 2 stars. In all honesty, it should probably be a 1 star, and I feel like I was being nice at the time, but it just was like, no, no, no. All right, so then we have First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is a sci-fi space opera, and it's basically about a war between multiple planets. I think there's like a war between Mars and Venus, or Earth and Venus. Somebody, there's like this interplanetary war going on, and there's one of the main characters, her name is First Sister, and she is like forced into prostitution on this like warship. And then there's some other characters who are like secret agents for different sides of the war and blah blah blah, and this is about how their stories end up intersecting in some way. And I feel like this is a really interesting story. It's very well written, it's really well crafted, and I do think that I might continue with the series, but the reason that this was disappointing to me is that I just really felt like I never fully connected to it, and I wanted to feel connected. Like, I wanted to feel connected to the events that were happening. I wanted to feel more connected to the characters or their relationship dynamics, and I just felt like I didn't connect to almost anything, and so it made the reading experience kind of like, and it took me months to finish this book because I was just so disconnected. So I don't think that it's a bad book at all, but like I said, I was very disconnected and kind of just like, it was just a very meh experience emotionally, but I think that like on a more technical level, I think it was a pretty good book. So yeah, it was disappointing because I wanted to love it. I wanted it to be like my new sci-fi obsession, and it just didn't end up being that. Okay, so then we have The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is a like sort of fake dating romance. This is like a workplace romance about this this radio show producer named Shay, and this guy named Dominic, who is like a reporter at the radio station that she works at, and basically they end up having to collaborate on this project where they are both pretending to be exes, and they have this show called The X Talk where they basically give people relationship advice based on the things that they learned from their like phony relationship. And in the course of this little project that they're doing, they end up falling for each other, and this kind of is like a hate to love vibe because Shay really doesn't like Dominic in the beginning of the book. And so this book was also disappointing to me because I just felt like I really did not root for Dominic and Shay's relationship. Like, I just didn't care whether they were together or not. I think the writing is fine, so like it was an easy book to get through. I read it pretty quickly, and I think that there's some like decent moments in it, but overall it was like a disappointing romance because I really was not rooting for them. And I actually really disliked Shay. She just bothered me to no end personally. First of all, in the beginning of the book, she really fucking does not like Dominic, and you know, because this is like hate to love, so of course she doesn't like him, and the reasons that she didn't like him seemed like really unfounded. I feel like most hate to love books are like that, where the characters, they have beef with each other, but the beef never really makes all that much sense. But like in this case, I felt like the issues that she had with Dominic didn't make a single fucking lick of sense. Like, he was good at his job and she was mad about it. It didn't make sense. It was just weird. And at first I thought like maybe she was just racist or something, because like he's a Korean man and she's white, and I was like, I don't know, it's just something about this, and like the animosity that she had towards him and the way that she treated him, it just felt weird. And like Dominic, he's supposed to be kind of like this annoying, boastful kind of guy, which sure, I mean, that could be irritating to have to deal with, but he didn't seem that bad. Like, he genuinely didn't seem that bad, and I felt like it just didn't make sense why she hated him the way that she did. So already I wasn't interested in their relationship from the hate to love aspect, because I just felt like it was like, what? And then the flip between the hating to the loving was also pretty quick, so the relationship development, it was lacking for me. And finally, I'll say that I found Shay, as I said earlier, to just not be a protagonist that I enjoyed following, because her inner monologue, she's just so bitter about so many things that it just was like, it was just tiring to read. I feel like she's a very realistic protagonist in that she's like, you know, this millennial woman who feels like she's kind of like, you know, her life is passing her by and other people in her life are meeting these sort of life milestones that she has yet to achieve. And so I understand why her mindset is like that, but I just did not enjoy being in her mind. I just didn't enjoy it. Like, she just was so irritating to me. Like, she was bitter about her best friend like getting a new job opportunity and possibly moving away, and I understand being sad about that, but like her bitterness and her she was like unable to be happy for her friend, and I felt like that was so selfish. And like the story does kind of, there's some like emotional development had where she evolves past that, but like it just felt so selfish. Like, you're a shitty friend, your friend is getting a job that they're really excited about, and your first thought is, oh my god, they're leaving me. Like, what? Bestie, you're supposed to be happy for other people. It's not a crime to be happy for other people and their accomplishments. In the same way, she's really bitter about Dominic and his successes at the radio station that they work at, because he just recently broke like some really big story at the beginning of the book, and so he, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, Dominic, he's so great, woohoo, whatever. And she's bitter about this, that Dominic is good at his job and that he did a good thing. It doesn't make sense. She's bitter that her mom is getting remarried because she still has yet to, like, you know, fully reconcile her feelings and her grief over her father passing away. And it's just like all these different things that I think make perfect sense. Like, I understand why she feels that way. Like, she's, you know, bitter about her mom getting married because she still has not moved on from her dad passing away, and so it's hard to see her mom moving on. I get that. I understand that she's, you know, sad because she doesn't have like some whole huge plethora of friends. She had this one main friend, and that friend is moving away, so I understand how that can be sad. She has this feeling that she's kind of like stuck creatively in her, or not stuck creatively, but just like kind of stuck in her job. Her job is not providing her with like all this satisfaction that she needs, and she just feels like, you know, she just feels a bit stuck with her job. And so I feel like Dominic represents like somebody who's doing better career-wise than her, and so she's bitter about that. And I understand those things, I understand those feelings, but reading about them did not like endear me to her. And I feel like her being in her head, as I said, it just was irritating and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, this was disappointing. This was one of my most anticipated romances of the year, and it just very much did not give me what I was hoping for. I can't say that it was a bad book because I gave this book 3 stars, and like I said, I do think that like it does certain things well. It explores, you know, like being a millennial and feeling like, you know, you're kind of stuck in life and people are, you know, achieving things that you aren't yet. I feel like it explores those things very well, but as a romance, it just wasn't what I wanted, and it didn't give me what I needed. And the final book that I want to tell you guys about, my camera battery is about to die, so I'm going to be talking very, very fast. But the final book I want to tell you guys about is Best Served Cold by Joy Abercrombie. This is one of the First Law standalones, and this is a revenge story about this character named Monza. Basically, this guy that she works for, she's like a mercenary, and the guy she works for attempts to murder her and murders her brother. So this is a story of revenge against him and all of the people who helped him, you know, orchestrate the murder of her brother and like the attack on her. And so this is like a fantasy story. There are a bunch of different characters. They're on this revenge quest that kind of has this like heist sort of vibe to it, because they're like, you know, they have all these like different little side missions. There's like a bank heist involved. There's all these different things that go on. I found this one to be really disappointing because I wanted to absolutely love the main character Monza, but I felt like her inner monologue was really boring. Like, she was not an emotionally compelling protagonist. And I feel like Joe Abercrombie, what he does really well is that all of his characters have a really interesting inner monologue and like view of the world and stuff like that. And I just felt like, for me, Monza's inner monologue was just so dead. It was just so lifeless that I didn't feel anything reading it, and so I was just kind of bored, and the book didn't give me the feelings that I thought it was going to evoke, especially because Best Served Cold seems to be like the fan favorite among Abercrombie fans, and it just did like nothing for me. I also think maybe it's because I didn't really care about the person she was getting revenge for, because her and her brother have a weird relationship, and I just didn't care. I didn't care about him, and being in her mindset while she was thinking about her brother was just kind of like, I don't know, you know, it just, I don't know. It's not even that it was like, oh, it was so gross that it was unenjoyable, but it was just like, her inner monologue was not interesting. Her inner monologue was not interesting, and so as a result, I didn't really care about her end goals, which were to get this revenge. And so I was just kind of like, So it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Monza, I was so disappointed. I wanted her to be like the new bad bitch in my life, and she just kind of wasn't. She is definitely a baddie, definitely very efficient at achieving her goals. So she is like a girl boss protagonist if I ever saw one. However, I just didn't love her as much as I thought I was going to, so that's why it's a bit disappointing for me. But yeah, those are all the books that were really disappointing to me this year. I feel like I talked for way longer than I anticipated, but it is what it is. I had a lot of disappointment to express. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and hopefully I will see you all in my next one. Bye, you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and a special thank you to all of my wonderful patrons.